All right, for the recording, welcome back. We are ACI Course 7, Class 10 on February 20th, 2025. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom, and see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you. Smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them. That beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Learning about karma and emptiness, we glimpse how it's possible. And so we turn our minds back to our precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet, to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Nirya Tayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. So last class we finished the 46 secondary vows. And so this last class is about things that will help us to be able to keep those vows well. Like we would want to know, wouldn't we? It's like, how do I do this? 64 vows, and when you break them down, it's more than 64. It's overwhelming. And so what clues did the holy beings give us to help us be able to be successful in this program? Because they want us to be successful. These vows are not made to keep us in line, to make sure that we behave properly. These vows are clues to the seeds we need to not make and the seeds we want to make that will ripen into the future that we're aspiring to experience. So they give us five things to learn, or like qualities to grow, that will help us keep our vows well. And when we have all 5 like happening within us, that is like what it is to keep the vows, actually. So there, you'll see when you get all 5, you'll see what we're talking about. So Geshe gave us these in Tibetan, although they're Tibetan words that I haven't really seen much after that. Usually the ones we learn here are ones that we go on to hear often. So here's our class 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are these 5 different steps. Geshe called them steps to learning how to keep our vows well. The first one is Sunglagupa. Sunglagupa. Sunglagupa literally means speech. The sung is speech. To respect. Respect the speech is what it's saying. But it's code word for recognizing that these vows are the speech of the Buddha. So we could say what it means by Sunglagupa is to respect these vows as words of the Buddha. But Geshe-la makes it a little more personalized in understanding what it means to respect the vows as words of the Buddha. He pointed out that, first of all, we might misunderstand and think the vows were written by somebody other than Buddha. No, the vows don't come in any of Buddha's sutras, all there in one sutra. A little bit here, a little bit over there. And then it was Arya Asanga who first wrote them down all in one place, apparently prompted by Lord Maitreya, right? Who must have been, looking down on sentient beings going, whoa, they've got to get this all together. So we might mistakenly think, well, Arya Asanga made them. No, because in the 900 years between Buddha and Asanga, people were losing their way. And that's not the case. Right? He didn't make them up. He just brought them all together for added benefit. Geshe-la reminded us that at any time when Lord Buddha was giving a teaching about vows, any vows, let alone giving the vows, in his omniscience, he was doing what he was doing at the time he was doing it for our benefit. Like in his omniscience, he was aware of us now when he was teaching then. Like my intellect goes, right? That's not possible. But omniscience is omniscience. And when we think of Buddha's teachings in that way, then it makes those teachings be like a gift for us. We finally ran across them and hear them. And oh my gosh, that's from Buddha to me, even though it looks like Geshe Michael saying it, or Tim, or whoever's giving the teaching. But in fact, it's Buddha talking to us. And, it sounds like magical thinking that's useful, but not really. And as our understanding of emptiness and karma grows, it won't be so weird to think, no, really. When Buddha taught the vows, the Bodhisattva vows, they are his gift to each of us individually. As if he wrapped them in a little package with a bow and has handed them to you. And when we think of it that way, then these vows, our respect for the vows gets strong. That's the meaning of Sungla Gupta. Not just respect because Buddha is this high holy being, but respect and value because they are specific for you and me. They are the behaviors that plant the seeds that contribute to all the other seeds being planted that ripen into this future that we want. They guide us in making our lives meaningful before it's too late, and before we lose this lifetime or lose the capacity to live according to the vows. So Geshe-la says this first step is to get into our minds that these vows are a personal gift from Lord Buddha. Second factor, sampa sum. Sampa sum means the three intentions. Sum is the number 3. Sampa means our intentions. Once we realize that an enlightened being has given us these vows, it means that I must be ready. I must be able to benefit from them. Right? I must be able to do it, or Buddha wouldn't given them to me. It's an interesting thought. Our karma ripened to meet the teachings that has the vows, and our karma is ripening that we're attracted to them. Right? That's one way of thinking of it. Another way of thinking of it is Buddha's been watching, and Buddha saw that we were ready for the teachings to come to us, and Buddha saw that we were ready for the vows to come to us. It feels more empowering, maybe a little scary, but more empowering to have this idea, wow, Buddha saw that I was ready. Yay, right? I can do this. And then as a result, we grew that first level of intention, which was to get and keep the vows. So because Buddha gave us this gift, we have this intention to keep them. First level of the 3 intentions, first intention. Then the second intention is the intention to reach Buddhahood. So again, if we didn't have some idea that we could reach Buddhahood, and even once we hear that we could, to think, wow, that'd be cool. I think I want to do that. Right? Without those 2 things happening or states of mind, then right, our intention to keep the vows wouldn't be the intention for those vows to help us reach Buddhahood. So the intention for Buddhahood is thinking as big as we can think, right? To have this aspiration really that's beyond conceptualizing. It takes big effort to track and change our behavior according to what the vows are guiding us to not do and to do. And they're teaching us how to shift our mindset from selfishness to otherish, right? I mean, the word is really altruism, but I mean, if we try to do the opposite of selfishness, it means otherish, concerned for other, which in the end means other, whether we like them or not. Our habits of me first are in every seed ever planted. So it's extraordinary to hear a teaching that teaches about otherishness and not run away saying that's impossible. So we have some good seeds that are helping us even hear that there's a progress to be made when we can overcome our habitual selfish behavior that even our own cultures reinforce. Yeah, no, not a total selfish slob, but come on, bodhisattva behavior. You go to a counselor because we're having anxiety and tell them, I'm on the path to save the world. They'll say, wait, right? There's where your anxiety lies, right? Because it's not in the cultural mindset that that's something reasonable to aspire to. Mm. When we say, I want to become enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings, included in that is this experience of being wherever you are and simultaneously, spontaneously, effortlessly being what helps every other existing being. You don't have to think it out. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to get on a plane and go there. That's just what it is to be you, enlightened being. We just try to turn it on at the beginning of class, thinking what it would be like to be able to help one person in a deep and ultimate way. And even that thinking is very limited compared to what it is we will become as enlightened beings. Our bodhisattva vows are the key to the behavior that plants the imprints in our minds that help ripen us into that experience. Buddha you and Buddha paradise emanating. We can't create ourselves into that without changing our ordinary habitual human behavior. And how would we know how to do it if we didn't have someone who had done it tell us what works and what doesn't work? And that's what our vows guide us in as we know. So the second intention is to reach total Buddhahood, to use these vows to reach total Buddhahood, not just a better this life, not just a better future life, although we will get both, but to go on all the way to Buddhahood, no matter how long it takes. Then that, when we delve into that second intention, it holds within it the third intention, which is reaching Buddhahood so that we can be the being who's helping all other beings reach the end of their suffering. Okay? If our goal in becoming a Buddha is our Buddha paradise me, and who cares about everybody else, we are never going to reach Buddha paradise me. So these two go together. The limitless number of beings that we intend to help stop their suffering. It makes those three intentions big enough that they inspire us enough to change our behavior. It takes some big inspiration and aspiration to change behavior. Right? People don't tend to quit smoking until they get sick from smoking, or somebody else gets sick from their smoking, or they realize that it's really dangerous to smoke. You can't just say to somebody, you know what, you need to quit smoking, and have them go, oh yeah, you're right, throw the pack away and never smoke again. I tried for many years. People need to get their own motivation, right? And it's true for us as well. Third So respect the speech. Have these 3 intentions. Domba Lang is the 3rd factor. Domba Lang, Domba means our vows, Lang means to take them. So once we've heard, oh, these vows, which we get to learn about before we take Bodhisattva vows, they are a gift from Buddha. I really do have these 3 intentions. I want the vows. And when we want something and we get it, it's like, first of all, that's a big rejoiceable. And then hopefully we want to keep them, right? You want the new bicycle. You want it so bad. And finally Santa brings it. Oh, I have this bicycle. I'm going to take really good care of it. I'm going to lock it everywhere I go so nobody steals it. I'm going to take really, really, really good care of this. Right? Our vows are more precious than our brand new bike, which is the 4th one. Chok tu gupa means respect as the highest thing. Chok tu, yes, I have that spelled right. Chok tu means like the highest thing. Gupa is that respect part. So it means to respect our vows as the highest thing, meaning the most valuable thing. So if I were to ask you, what's the most valuable thing that you have? You know, you might say, oh, my children, or my relationship, or my computer, or, right? There's something I hope that pops into mind when it's like the thing that's most valuable to you. And how we relate to that and how we protect it and keep it and care for it for something that is only gonna last for this lifetime. Okay? And we have this big attachment to it. Our vows are more precious than that most precious thing. And the point isn't to disrespect the precious thing. The point is to think of how well we take care of our relationship with that precious thing, and then turn that onto our vows and multiply it because of how much more precious our vows are than any worldly thing could ever be, because they are the guidelines to the behavior that will ripen into Buddha, us in Buddha paradise, emanating to help other beings stop their suffering forever. What could be more precious than that? And those vows, we understand, are not just ours for this lifetime. Okay? They are an impression in our mind in order to reach Buddhahood, which takes more than one lifetime. So those vows are going to go along in our mind stream. With this understanding towards our vows, they become less and less a sense of restriction or of like discipline that Buddha told us to do, and more precious and exciting, and something we're eager to gain a relationship with. Then the last one is min gelwa. Min gelwa, min is not, and gelwa means to break them. So with these other 4 in place, number 5 grows, which is to not break them. We won't break the vows. We won't be inclined to break the vows when we relate to them as a gift from the Buddha, having come to us because of our intentions. What was the second one? Our intentions through which we wanted them, then through which we see how precious they are. And so those states of mind will help guide us in our behavior choices through which we do keep those vows. They use the term to protect the vows and to choose behaviors based on the vows advices is what it is to protect our vows. What damages the vows is when we do the behaviors that the vow says, I pledge to avoid that behavior. And we know that for the root downfalls, for 16 of them, they can only be broken if we have those 4 nasty states of mind, which it's kind of hard to have these states of mind and those 4 nasties at the same time. So those 4 nasty ones, if you recall, is you don't think the deed is wrong. You are pleased with having done it. You would be willing to do it again, and you have no shame or consideration regarding it. Except for those 2, right? Which can be lost in a moment of slip. But even then, the moment of slip needs to be sustained, right? All right, so in the unfortunate situation where we do break a vow, we learned that if that's a primary vow, a root vow, we need to request to retake the vow ceremony again. Right? We need to regrow our Mahayana motivation, request, and receive them again. For the secondary vows, to restore them, we do confession. It does not require requesting to receive the vows again. Anytime one wants to retake the vow, Bodhisattva vow ceremony, you are welcome to do so. You inform the preceptor who's giving them, I've already received my vows, and I'm trying to keep them, but I would love to be involved in this ceremony to reinforce, right, my vows and my vow keeping. And that does not say to your mind, look, I need them over again, right? It's different when you're retaking your vow ceremony because you need to re-get them, right? Who knows? Only you know. I mean, you and the preceptor will know, but it's our own mind establishing carefully, why we're redoing the vow ceremony if we are. So secondary vow damage don't require that. They require confession. And in the confession, we would want to include in our confession, like the apparent reason why we weren't able to keep that behavior or avoid the one we were supposed to avoid. Looking at whether it happened out of laziness, forgetfulness, or some mentally afflicted state, or like part of our confession should include the apparent reason why we fell down. Not because the one you're confessing to needs to hear it, but it helps our own mind sort out what is it I need to pay closer attention to to prevent me from damaging this vow again or others. Right? If it's just laziness, all of our vows are at risk if we don't crank up our effort in some way. So to restore a secondary vow, we confess before a suitable person, meaning human person in this case. And it does not need to be ordained person. It does not even need to be a person who has bodhisattva vows. It needs to be a person who would understand that you are telling them about a behavior that you regret so that you can like get it out of you and start afresh. That person you're confessing to, it's a very important job to be someone who hears another's confession, because all you're supposed to do is sit there and listen. You don't give an opinion. You don't give advice. Hopefully you smile somewhere along the way, right? And let them understand that you understand without judging, and forget it as soon as they're done, so that you don't come across them in the grocery store and have your mind go, hey, they're the one who convinced that behavior, right? You don't want them to feel that way about you when you're confessing to somebody. So don't harbor those. Hear it, let it wash over. When we have someone who we are confident it will hold it in confidentiality. Of course, that's the other responsibility of the one to whom we are confessing, is they need to be someone that you know can hold confidentiality, which is what I mean by forgetting it. Right? You don't tell it to anybody because you've forgotten it. But until you've forgotten it, don't say to anyone, no matter what. So the suitable person is this person who can hear what you're saying and cannot judge you negatively and cannot give you advice and tell you what to do, but understands that you are in fact trying to clear your heart and start afresh. It takes effort to learn how to do confession well. It is human nature to withhold information, to not even want to hear ourselves confess that we've done something wrong. Don't beat yourself up over that. It's freeing to find a relationship with someone where you can do that, right? And they don't have to do back for you. It doesn't have to be like that. And it's powerful for our own mind to hear ourselves admit regret, establish an antidote power and a power of restraint. So our confession should have the 4 powers. Again, the person you're confessing to, it doesn't matter whether they hear what your antidote's going to be, but it helps us to actually do the antidote and do the power of restraint when we've declared to someone we're going to. It seems more powerful than just declaring to ourselves that we're going to. All right. So Geshe says, doing confession regularly and sincerely is a really powerful practice. Okay, in Tsongkhapa's text, The Highway for Bodhisattvas, he says there are 5 factors that influence the seriousness of the deed that we end up doing that damages or breaks the vow. And we learned these in part from our How Karma Works course. So this is not new information, but it's helpful to hear it again in this little different context in terms of helping our behavior choices, because the vows situations, as we saw, are not like black and white. Do this, don't do that. The situations we find ourselves in have all these gray areas, and we need to be able to assess our natural reaction, our ignorant, human, selfish reaction that our culture probably says is the right thing to do, and then be able to see the criteria through which we show ourselves that may or may not be the best response to a situation. And when we're in the midst of a situation, of course, that's hard to do. That's why we're growing this quality of mindfulness, ethical mindfulness, so that our experience is that we have many of our recurring themes, situations worked out already, either from our meditation cushion or from past mistakes, so that we're more likely to be able to choose a different response. And yet still life will throw us curveballs, and we'll find ourselves in a same situation, but more triggered, or a new situation, right, that isn't familiar. And then our default mode is usually ignorant me, right? Self-existent me, self-existent them, blah. And by the time we blah, the deed is done. And then as soon as we can fit that to one of our vows, we go, oh man, I regret it, and I'm going to undo it this way. So there are factors that influence the strength of the seed that's planted by the deeds that we do. Vows or no vows, this is true. But when we're talking about vowed behavior in particular, this helps us to see, it just helps us to like plan, or you'll see, I hope. So there are 5 factors that influence the seriousness of the deed done. So again, it does not mean these are the factors where you can do a deed that harms somebody and not get negative karma back. That is not true. That is never true. Even in Diamond Way, it's not true. But how harmful the deed is influences, there are factors in the harmful deed that influence how strongly the seed is planted. That's what I'm trying to say. So the first factor, first of the 5, is by way of the nature of the vow. So we know that the root vows are more serious to break than the secondary vows. And they're more serious to break because in order to break them, we have those 4 wrong points of view through which we justify doing the behavior that is what is proscribed not to do. Except for 2. And those 2, holding wrong views and just giving up on our wish, the nature of those 2 behaviors are such that if we go from glimpses of right view to total wrong view, it means there's no reason for our behavior to be anything other than exactly what we want to do. And then to give up bodhicitta is, of course, the reverse of that huge wish that we had planted. And it just like turns it inside out. And so the nature of the vow, some vows are higher goodnesses than others, which means breaking them is worse, has a worse effect. Then, second is by way of what instigated the behavior through which we broke or damaged the vow. Meaning, like, what was it that made us do that deed that we have a vow to not do? The least serious break of a vow, they tell us, is to not know the vow. Like if we got vows and didn't know what they were, we still break them when we do that behavior. But you don't even know. So yes, it's a damage, it's a negative karma that we make, but it's not a very serious one. Secondly, if we know about the vows, but we're just careless or distracted or forgetful, in a sense, we're disrespecting those vows, it's a stronger negativity than breaking them out of just not knowing them. But it's not as strong as being temporarily overcome by some whopping mental affliction. So to let a big mental affliction override our ethical mindfulness, and so it overrides our trying to behave, trying to respond differently than the natural reaction says to do, and letting it take us over. It's a stronger break of the vow than just out of carelessness. Then even more serious is to break a vow out of disrespect for the vow. So disrespect means you have that vowed behavior, and you decide in this situation, for whatever reason, it's more important that I do that deed than keep the vow. Right? Now, we heard that there are certain circumstances for a high-level bodhisattva, right, where they will make that choice. It does not mean that they don't get a negative result. Right? A negative result that has a positive outcome, actually. Geshe-la gave a couple of different examples. He said, like, we know that we're supposed to make offerings to the 3 jewels every day. But, come on, those 3 jewels, for whatever reason, we decide they don't really need my offering, or, I don't feel like it today. And I know I should, but I'm just not gonna. Right? That's disrespecting the vow. Showing ourselves that we don't really think we don't really mean business. He said in worldly life, your boss is yelling at you. you shouldn't yell back. You even know that by yelling back, you're going to make more of it. But in that situation, it's just, I know if I yell hard enough, loud enough, I'll get what I want. And so you just decide to do it, right? Because we're aware that we're disrespecting ourselves as much as of the vow to behave like that. So in the reading, there are 9 different kinds of factors where we are likely to decide on a behavior that in fact breaks a vow. These 9 different instigators. Third one is with regard to the level of the 3 poisons that are in our mind while we do the behavior. So the 3 poisons we know are desire, hatred, and ignorance, also known as ignorant disliking, ignorant liking, ignorant disliking, and ignorance itself. And come on, we have these in our minds all the time. Right. And the extent to which they are driving the show is being included in the seed that's being planted by what we do. So, of course, there are different levels of activity in the mind as we're reacting to a situation are going to influence that seed in stronger or weaker ways in the sense of the new seed having that poison also in it, so that when it ripens, we'll have it again. So ignorant liking, we have it in our minds all the time. It's that thought of wanting to get what we want, to keep what we have that's pleasant, to not lose that pleasant thing or pleasantness. And the ignorance is not the liking. The ignorance is not the wanting. The ignorance is not the pleasure. It's not wanting to keep the pleasure. The ignorance is in the belief that the object or the other is the source of the pleasure. And as a result, it means I want to get that. I want to keep that. And it goes on into, and what I do in a worldly way to get it is expected to work. It's expected to keep that. So it's the choice of what we do to get and keep the thing that we perceive as the source of our happiness, our pleasure. That is the poison, because it influences us in our choice of what to do to get and keep that thing. Ignorant dislike then is wanting to be separated from an undesirable object. Wait, it's time for a break. Let's do our break before we do ignorant dislike. I will pause the recording for the recording back. That's, All right, so ignorant dislike, as we know, is wanting to be separated from an unpleasant object in an ignorant way, which means doing something harmful to avoid or stop an unpleasant experience. Because to use something harmful it means we don't understand that the unpleasantness is created by harmful behavior, right? The ignorance of not realizing where unpleasant situations come from in the first place. So our habit is to react to negativity with more negativity. And that just perpetuates the negativity. Wise behavior would be, in the face of unpleasant, we still be kind, helpful, compassionate, which may look like run away fast. Right? It doesn't mean that a bodhisattva sits there and takes the abuse in the negative behavior. Third poison is the ignorance itself, the pig, out of the mouth of whom is coming the snake and the rooster. Because the ignorance means the misunderstanding of how things work and where they come from in the first place. And when we misunderstand, thinking that their qualities and functions and identities are in them, from them, mine, in me, from me, then there's no reason not to be unkind in the face of unpleasantness or selfish in the face of pleasantness. Right? The wrong view begets wrong behavior, begets wrong view. Wisdom would be, if there's something that we like, we share it. If there's something we find unpleasant, we help others get free of it. So, in terms of affecting the seriousness of the deeds, the stronger any one or more of the three poisons are in our mind, the heavier the karmic seed is from the deed that we're doing, regardless of the deed, right? The same deed done with stronger three poisons is a stronger negative seed because of the strength of the one or more of the poisons. So Geshe gave a couple of examples. He said, suppose you go to your favorite restaurant and somebody's at your favorite table, and you have this fleeting thought of that displeasure towards them, but you just take another table, right? There's a fleeting, a light form of ignorant dislike. But suppose you're being yelled at by your supervisor and you are yelling back, sure that if you yell hardest, you'll get them to stop blaming you or doing whatever it is they're doing that's so unpleasant. That's strong, ignorant dislike in your mind. And it makes a stronger karmic imprint. The fourth factor is the object towards which the deed is done affects the strength of the karmic consequence. So a lighter object is a being who has less capacity to become enlightened in that lifetime. So capacity, that means animals are lesser karmic objects than humans, even the most amazing animal, Lassie, compared to the worst human, because poor Lassie doesn't have the capacity to choose her moral behavior. She can be taught, right? Exquisite Lassie was, but right, she herself doesn't have the capacity in that lifetime. The human has the capacity. Maybe they won't ever use it in that lifetime. But by way of being a human, they're a powerful karmic object for good and for bad. That does not mean it's okay to harm animals because they're lesser karmic objects, right? It means we'll end up being a lesser karmic object that gets killed someday. Yuck, don't want that. A medium karmic object. I don't know, they specifically say a medium karmic object specific to killing for existence is a human or a human embryo. And anyway, these teachings say that human life begins at conception. And we learned about our vow for avoiding killing human or human fetus. Then a heavy karmic object is a being who has benefited us. Like the extent to which a being has benefited us increases the power of them as a karmic object. That's a more precise way of saying it. Because we could say, my dog Lassie has benefited me more than my neighbor. You know, so it's like, which one's the more powerful karmic object? And there wouldn't be a clear answer to that, would there? Okay. So beings who have benefited us greatly, the ones that are at the top of that list are mother, father, and then, of course, spiritual teacher. The fifth factor in the strength of our karmic plantings is called the accumulation. Accumulation means that the strength of a karma increases with the more vows we break and with doing so repeatedly. So they specify if we break 5 or less secondary vows in small ways and don't confess and purify them, it's a lesser serious karmic consequence. Is it a negative karmic consequence? Yes. A medium seriousness would be to break more than 5, but still an amount that you could count, and to let them go on broken. Then heavy seriousness is to break many vows many times, too many times to count. So just in terms of seriousness of behavior, right? Be thinking about our vows in different situations and how there are all these different influences going on towards the behavior that we choose to respond, whether we pay enough attention to our choice of behavior related to our vows, and whether we are happy with that behavior, happy with the outcome that appears to come from it, which will either reinforce our ignorance or not. So again, we're wanting, give me a list through which it will just make this all 100% clear. Sorry, I don't have such a list. There's too many variations on the theme of our moment by moment experiences that we can't put it all in these little slots and little boxes. Our job is to learn the nuances through trial and error and keep our motivation strong and continue to work with these guidelines of behaviors until they're so familiar to us that they just bubble out of us. Okay. So Jetson Kappa goes on to point out that, again, there are 4 causes that contribute to the breaking of our vows. One factor is just not knowing them. And Jetson Kappa says the antidote to this isn't just learn them. He says the antidote is master them. Master your vows. When we're doing our checking them 6 times a day, or any number of times of day, this is what we're doing, right? We're learning to watch for those situations, to recognize the situations, to choose our behaviors based on the guidelines. It takes time to master them, just like anything else, and it takes effort. And then, of course, it takes the aspiration to become a master of them, right? If we don't want to master them, there's nothing that's going to make us do it. Second factor that causes us to break our vows is that laziness, carelessness, forgetfulness. And the antidote is to be mindful. I like the term ethical mindfulness because we can train ourselves to be so mindful of eating our oatmeal, but that isn't going to necessarily transfer over to being so mindful of our choice of behavior next time somebody's yelling at us. It's a different kind of mindfulness, to be alert to our reaction and to be able to hold our awareness clearly enough that we don't let the reaction manifest all the way up. And the more alert we are to our unethical reaction, right? That word doesn't land right in my mind. The selfish reaction, the more alert we are to the sensation that's going to become the selfish reaction, the sooner we can go, oh, here it comes, right? I know where it's headed. Let's switch directions. Okay? It takes effort, it takes alertness, it takes awareness, it takes tracking. Yeah, oops, right? Oops, fouled it up again. I'm going to try again next time. Again, it can be like any kind of training. You know, if you were learning to play the violin and every time you got the string in the wrong place, you said, oh, I'm never going to be a good violinist, you would throw it away and quit practicing because we're beating ourselves up with every error. Same thing will happen with our spiritual practice. If we let it berate us every time we fail, we're gonna fail. Our seeds are filled with misunderstanding and selfishness. They're gonna ripen. And right, we're just tracking how much, how often. Oh, whoops, right? But look at these. I did all of these good ones. Maybe put your positive in your book before you put your negative. Like, in fact, I challenge you to do that if you're not already, because we're taught, put down how you fouled up. And then, oh, by the way, add the positive. Maybe reverse that. Look what a good job I did here. And, oh, whoops, over here. It will help. It will help our progress stay on track. Okay. All right, second one. Not knowing the vows too, laziness. Geshe said, in cultivating or ethical mindfulness, that's my term, not his. He said you might start out each time you stop to do an entry in your book, just before you do, think, I'm keeping this book in order to plant the karmic seeds to see emptiness directly so that I can become a totally enlightened being, so that I can help others in that ultimate way. And so I'm offering these deeds to the three jewels: the emptiness of the Buddha's mind, the emptiness wisdom, and those who have already seen it. Please, to all of you, bless my mind with an increasing ability to achieve my goals. And it's like, that's long. By the time I've done that, I've forgotten what I'm supposed to write in my book, you know? Maybe that's all right. It's reminding ourselves of what and why we're learning to choose different behavior than what we've trained ourselves to choose as effective human beings, apparently effective human beings. Okay. Third cause of breaking our vows is those mental affliction attacks. Right? They grow in our mind in such a way that they influence our thoughts, our speech, and our actions. Like when we're under a strong mental affliction, we can't think clearly. We can't pull out logic. The logic we pull out will justify the behavior that the mental affliction wants us to do. Right? They call it a demon, but it's not something other than our own mind so riled up with what it wants to do that it won't let itself think clearly. So the antidote to getting overwhelmed by our mental afflictions is to identify your own worst one and work on it first. The one that will trigger you into a habitual selfish reaction is the one to learn. What does it feel like when it's first starting to bubble up? What works to use that sensation in a different direction? What reaction do I want to do? And what would be the opposite of it? And try the opposite on for size in your imagination or with somebody else in a different situation rather than the one person who actually pushes that button all the time. We would need to be willing to admit we have this particular mental affliction and these are the situations that bring it up. And although I've been trying to avoid those situations, now I kind of need to get into one from time to time to see how I'm doing with my reinterpretation of the situation and the feelings. If you don't know what your own worst mental affliction is, Geshe says, ask your best friend. They'll know. Anyway, the fourth factor that causes us to break our vows is having disrespect for the vows or for the Buddha. So we've heard this thing about respect multiple times in tonight's class. To disrespect means they're not important. Again, if we get into a mental affliction attack, that's one of the things that's going to be in there is, oh, those vows aren't important in this situation. So the stronger our respect for the vows and for the Buddha who gave us those vows as gifts for us uniquely, individually. The stronger our respect, the harder a mental affliction will have to be before we lose that respect. So the antidote is to cultivate this sense of respect. And really it means value, importance, not just respect like they're higher than me, but their value, to really recognize that the power of these teachings. Mm-hmm. And then they say, and this respect grows by way of our efforts to try to keep the vows. Because just trying to keep the vows is enough to start seeing some kind of shift in our own experience. You know, it may not be that you turn on your bodhisattva vow behavior and 2 weeks later, you've got rainbows in the sky and more money in your bank account. But your own sense of progress or sense of confidence on your path will start to grow, right? How people respond to you will shift. And if we're on alert for these little subtle changes, then we go, oh yeah, I see there is a benefit for being more kind in the face of something where everybody expects me to yell back or expects me to lie, to wiggle out of it. And then somebody sees you not do that. It influences our own mind in such a way, right, that we do start to see shifts. And as we experience those kinds of shifts, this sense of respect grows. But you see, in the sense of the value of continuing to try to use these guidelines as our behavior choice guidelines. So what are the benefits of keeping vows? Ultimately, we perfect our morality and go on to reach our Buddhahood. And it takes vowed morality to plant the seeds enough for that to happen, right? Not just strongly enough, but enough. So remember, once we have vows to avoid yelling back, we're keeping the vow every moment. We're not yelling at anybody, as opposed to only getting the goodness of not yelling back when somebody's yelling at us, right? Which maybe doesn't happen very often anymore. So to have vows and to keep vows, do you see, it's a numbers game. It's a moment of imprints that helps so much to have vows, as long as we keep them. So there are 5 temporal benefits, they say, for keeping our vows. One of them is that we die with ease and happiness. So having lived a life of morality by way of the vows, which is the morality of avoiding harming others, the morality of gathering goodness, and the morality of doing both with this heart that wants to be able to help everybody stop their suffering, that leaves our mind free of regrets, with less negativities and fewer mental afflictions, any one of which could arise at the moment the mind, right, at the moment of death, which would be our projecting karma. So we've heard this before. If you've got, mostly black balls in the lottery thing, and 3 or 4 white ones, the likelihood of a white one popping at the moment of death is remote because you've got so many more black balls. With our bodhisattva behavior vow keeping habits, we'll have more white balls than black balls. So, like, what's there to worry about? Now, is it possible a black ball could go? Yes. But less likely because of the numbers. And you'll die looking forward to meeting Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure the correlation there, but it's kind of nice to think of. Temporal benefit of keeping our vows is that the Buddhas look after us like we are part of their family. When we take bodhisattva vows, that's one of the things they say. The Buddhas finally recognize your face out of the crowd. Right? You become part of the family. And you'll be reborn in a place where there are teachers and there are others practicing the Dharma. We'll always have what we need, both Dharma-wise, teaching-wise, and have our needs met, right? Which most of us do, right? I mean, we have more than our needs met. And in this life, we accumulate great merit. And so our life improves and our morality gets more and more pure. So it's this upward cycle. As we try to keep them, we're able to keep them better. There'll be ups and downs, but mostly it will be on the rise, even if it doesn't seem like it. And then in future lives, we'll automatically be a master of morality. So because these vows go on with us, and because of the bigness of the seeds that are planted, it becomes easier and easier life to life to live them and grow them bigger. So we want to use these vows as guidelines for our behavior. And if we're in a sangha with others who are trying to do the same thing, we help each other as well. Not in the sense of keeping somebody else's book. I saw you do that. That broke vow number 27. Don't you think you better confess it before you do it again? Right? Please don't do that. Don't put somebody else in a situation where their automatic human reaction to you would be to break their vow. That's how we help people keep their vows. You want to yell at them and you suspect they'll yell back. Don't. Right? We keep our vows by helping them keep their vows. Okay. We learn in Lojong, the main judge, be the main judge, meaning judge yourself, not the others. When someone's doing something to hurt themselves or someone else, yes, we try to interfere in some way, in a good way. But without that judgment of, what kind of bodhisattva are you to do that? Right? Mirror. But it's tricky because we don't also look the other way when harm is happening. All right. we will misjudge situations. We will misunderstand, and we will act from that misunderstanding because we have the seeds to do so. And maybe there'll be situations where as a result, we realized, oh, I did break a vow. And that regret, right, would trigger in us the other 4 powers for purification. And we'll fix it as swiftly as we can. The vows are meant to help us use our understanding of karma and emptiness to push ourselves from our comfort zone. Hey, our comfort zone at first is our usual selfish habit, letting it go on. And then we start to get some change in behavior, and we're not inclined to behave in those old selfish ways. And then it's like, okay, great, this is good enough. And we would then want to continue to push our karma and emptiness understanding, which we learn with later courses. Okay, that completes our class 10, and so our course 7. I received a couple of questions about these secondary vows and like circumstances that we might get in, and how do they relate? So one of those questions was about the vow that says, I will avoid studying non-Dharma teachings, even non-Mahayana teachings. And then there was another that says, even if I do have to spend time on that, I won't spend a lot of time. Like, I won't let that overtake the time I spend on my personal practice. And there's this whole set of teachings that YSI is teaching that are not even not Hinayana texts, but they're Hindu. I mean, Geshe-la's teaching the greatest Hindu text, right? The Bhagavad Gita. Now, and YSI is based on teaching that tradition from the point of view of karma and emptiness. And Geshe-la's beautiful wisdom is that when we are well trained in karma and emptiness, we would be able to see the karma and emptiness in anything, any situation, any school of thought, any philosophy, and we would be able to add it into that philosophy in a way that would help people who followed that philosophy, that they would be able to follow their own philosophy in a better way, in a higher way. So he wanted a book called Karma and Emptiness in the Tao Te Ching. He said, if you're a bowler, go teach karma and emptiness in bowling. So if we are studying bowling, and we're studying bowling from a karma and emptiness point of view, is it a non-Mahayana study? Seems like it. I'm studying bowling, but I'm learning how to bowl based on karma and emptiness, which is what are you probably going to be doing in your bowling? Helping other people learn to bowl better, right? And maybe you never actually bowl, right? That's all I love to do is bowl, but I don't ever get to because I'm making sure everybody else is bowling to the best of their capacity, right? That would be keeping your bodhisattva vow, right? So it's like, well, then I just have to make up some scenario that makes anything I want to do the Mahayana. And it's like, technically, yeah, as long as you're not fooling yourself and making something up so that you can go bowl every night and you don't, in fact, help anybody else learn to bowl better. Well, then who was listening to my excuse for making bowling be a Mahayana experience? I was. So I didn't really do it, right? So hopefully in the YSI teachings, they are reminding people that these are all from the point of view of karma and emptiness. And then that is what protects us from damaging this vow if our YSI study overtakes our whatever else we were studying before, right? If it overtakes your ACI, for instance, when you've decided you want to do all the ACIs, and then, right, it's not contradictory if we understand why and from what point of view we're studying. So that would be the same for anything that we feel we need to spend time on in order to better be able to help the people in my world who, frankly, almost none of them are interested in the ACI series of courses. So am I going to break my bodhisattva vow by going into some other arena to help people just because it's not a Mahayana? Our own point of view as we're doing it determines whether we have kept our vow or broken our vow. Okay? So then there's another vow about like judging the Hinayana, saying it's a lesser teaching and the Mahayana is higher. And it's hard not to do that because we do, it's a higher benefit. It's higher teachings. But understanding the emptiness of the teachings, they're only higher for us. There's nothing in the Mahayana that in and of itself makes it a higher teaching. It's not a higher teaching if a person's karma ripens their understanding that the highest thing that they could ever reach is nirvana. Then to talk to them about reaching Buddhahood wouldn't be a higher thing. It would be a crazy thing, right? Just to tell them, Buddhahood is higher than nirvana wouldn't be a service. If they would just go, no way, you have to be a Buddha to be a Buddha. I'm not a Buddha, but I can reach nirvana. Wow. Right? For them, the Mahayana isn't higher. Do you see? And our seed's bias says, yeah, because they're a lesser practitioner, of course they can't see that it's higher, but it is higher. No, it's not. Right? It's only higher for us. So really higher, lower, it's the problem with our interpretation of those words. And that's probably more the point of the Bodhisattva vow, is that we are comparing ourselves and judging and finding them to be lesser and me to be higher. And right, that's the ick of the Bodhisattva. Okay. Then another question was about, I will avoid not going to a Dharma talk. When there's like 6 different Dharma talks going on all the time, available to us online all the time. Like, gee, too bad, right? There's too much Dharma available. It is true that it's slippery, because it is true that there could be some Dharma talk happening constantly that we know about, that we could have gone to, and we just didn't. And do we break the vow with every single one of those? And again, we are our own judge. And the criteria would be, why am I not going to that teaching that I've heard about? And I admit, mostly I just look through, and it's like, no, I've got something else going on. No, I don't need that one. And it's just like so automatic that I don't really stop and think, do I have a good reason for not going to that? Not everything is available and appropriate for us, even if they are available. Now, if they're right next door and they're at a time where you don't have something else going on, and you just decide, nah, I don't feel like it, that probably damages that vow. If, yes, they're online, and it is at a convenient time, but it's going to take me through the time I should be making dinner for the family. Now, is it better to go and let the family be late? Is it better to go to the teaching and leave early? Or is it better to just say, okay, that teaching is not for me right now, so that I can be more readily available to keep my obligation to my family? Only you can decide that. Right? Have a good reason for why you can't go to all those different teachings. Have that reason not be because you don't like the teacher, not out of some kind of disrespect, but out of some kind of healthy, I can cope with 2 ACI classes a week. And more than that, and I get overwhelmed and I don't do anything very well. That's a conscious, intentional, these are my limits right now to do a good job learning what's being taught. Hey, it's not helpful to overload ourselves with even the teachings. Right? We'll get numb to them. We'll disrespect them. A teaching we go to, we would want to be eager and interested and something new to learn, something to add to my practice. And if we're going to them just feeling obligated, right, that's not our state of mind either, that we want as we're listening to a Dharma talk. So, we could say, when these vows were given, it was rare and special to have a good Dharma teaching. And maybe you had your classwork as the monk, but 2 monasteries over, there's this High Lama that's coming. And you had to make a choice between your own classes and the High Lama. And then you've got this, what do I do, conundrum. All of these vows require this assessment according to the situation that we're in. And then when we make a good conscious decision based on trying to keep the vow in a given situation, that's what's keeping the vow. Okay. All right. That's all I have to say. Any more of those kinds of questions? I know that they pop up later, not at the end of class, but if there are any, we've got 7 more minutes. Good. Going once, going twice. All right, so remember that person we wanted to be able to help? Wow, we learned a lot in this class. We learned a lot in this course. You've done your homeworks and your quizzes. That's so awesome. And think of this goodness. Let yourself admit, I did a pretty good job. And be at least a little happy with yourself. A healthy, moral, ethical goodness. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guide. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please, please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you, support you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the 2 ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone you love. To share it with every existing being everywhere. Everywhere. See them all filled with happiness. Filled with the wisdom of loving kindness. Shining it forth on the beings of their world. And may it be so. All right, thank you again for the opportunity. Next class, you will teach me. Okay? So you're welcome to take your questions and teach it, or you're welcome to read the answer key, right? Whichever you would like. We'll all get teaching seats. Okay, I will see you. This is Thursday. That'll be Sunday. Okay. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.